Hey, what's up, folks? It's Poke Trainer Tyson here, and today I wanted to take a little bit and rank the SARs in Terastal Festival EX. They came out this Friday. It's currently Sunday, December 8th. As of recording this video, I wanted to take a look at all of the fancy cards that people are going to be looking to pull and go ahead and give them my ranking. I've got the cards kind of mixed up here at the bottom, as you'll see, so we're not going in any specific order or by any specific archetype. But go ahead and while you're starting the video, like, comment, subscribe. Go ahead and click the links in the description. Follow all the socials, and we're going to go ahead and hop into the list. First, we have the Crispin. The Crispin to me is dope. As somebody who's a fan of the games and the DLC, all of the trainer SARs happen kind of in that little underground area in the Blueberry Academy. Crispin to me is going to go in the A tier. This video isn't going to have much to do with the financial value of the cards, just the playability and the art itself. For me, Crispin is very playable. It's one of those cards that I think after rotation is going to become even more playable, and it is definitely a cool art. I'm a person who plays full art trainers in their deck just because they're easier to deck search for. This is one that I'm deeply considering buying for my deck. Next up, let's hop on to, let's look at an evolution. This is an evolution set after all. Let's start with the Flareon. Flareon to me gets a B. So Flareon, it is a semi-playable evolution. I talked about it in my video about the playability of the cards in the set. You can go ahead and click the card that's going to pop up here if you want to see that. Semi-playable, but the art's a little basic. Flareon, and honestly a lot of these evolutions just have kind of basic art, so it's going to get a B for me as far as overall. Let's see, let's hop into Golden Go EX, just as its first here in the list. For me, Golden Go, it's a pretty playable card right now. It's got a couple of top 4s, a couple of top 8s. I'm gonna put this one in S tier just because the flavor on this card is so good. It's very on brand for Golden Go. Golden Go, you know, he's a golden surfer boy. This card represents that. It's a very playable deck. He's gonna get an S tier from me, guys. Moving on to something I think is also in the S tier is going to be this Dragapult EX. Dragapult EX is a pretty playable card. It's had some ups and downs in the current format. I think next format, or post rotation I should say, is where this card is really going to start shining. And when it first came out without an SAR, I was very surprised. So now that it has one, I think this one is one that's at the top of the list for me. Keeping on theme with cards that we've already got, let's take a look at the Raging Bolt EX. Now, I might be a little biased for the Raging Bolt as I was a Raging Bolt player for a while, but for me, this one's going to go in the A tier. Raging Bolt EX is a very playable card, always a high meta share deck. The thing with this card, we already have a really nice SAR from the set that it came from. That's about $95 USD, but this one I expect to be a lot cheaper, so that's why it's going to A tier for me. It's playable, it's pretty, people are going to want to put it in their decks. It's going to go in the A tier. Let's take a look at something that might not be as high on the list. Let's go the Jasmine supporter. So Jasmine, for me, is going to go in the D tier. Jasmine's a character that people may like, but it's not, you know, super crucial. She's not super pivotal to anything. And then the card's not really playable. It's a card that when it came out had some potential, but then as the format starts to iron out, there's no real spot for it. Maybe post rotation this card will be good and I'll have to eat my words, but for now it's going in the D tier. Same as Petron EX. Petron EX is actually pretty playable. A lot of decks play one or two of, because the ability allows you to always have a switch if you play a mainly dark type deck. But this art to me is not as good as the art that came out in Shrouded Fable. It's just kind of I mean, it's nice, it's bright, it's pretty, but there's nothing special about it. So for me, it's going in D tier. Let's see. Let's go to a Pokemon that's pretty playable right now. We have the Terapagos EX. Very playable. Played in Palkia decks. Played in its own deck with Dusknoir. There was even a Charizard deck that did well with it a while ago. For me, this is a solid C tier card. Terapagos, while it is really playable, we already have an SAR version. That one's actually pretty pricey, but not a lot of people are, going crazy chasing after her Terapagos. It's not a lot of people's, especially with the Pokemon that get SARs in this set, not a lot of people's, must have Pokemon. And I don't know a lot of people that are gonna, quote unquote upgrade their decks to go from regular SAR from Stellar Crown to the SAR from Prismatic Evolution over here in English. So it's gonna go in the C tier for me. Palafin EX. This is an interesting one because it's one of the only ones that's not really playable at all, but it is very, very, very cool artwork. This is done by a popular anime artist in Japan. This one's gonna get a I'll give it an A. This one's gonna get an A for me just because the artwork is so dope. I mean, it's exactly what Palafin, what you would imagine, throwing a hail of punches as fast as you can see him coming. This one is very on brand, on flavor for Palafin, so it's gonna get an A from me. Let's see here. We haven't done any. We did one ancient Pokemon actually, so let's go ahead and do a future Pokemon. Let's hop over to Iron Hands EX. Iron Hands EX is a super playable card right now. A lot of decks play one of Miraidon, Lost Box, just because that Ampy Very Much attack lets you take an extra prize. This one's going to go in the B for me. Honestly, I think that the SAR that we already have is more on brand for Iron Hands. If you play the game, it's more kind of what he does. This one's just pretty, right? Which isn't a bad thing. This one is very pretty, but it is just pretty versus the other one has that flavor with it. So that's why it's going in the B for me. Let's see, is there another one that's for the same reason is going there? No, actually, because the other future Pokemon, we have Iron Valiant and Iron Crown. Both of these are going to get C's from me. Actually, Iron Crown's going to get a D from me, and here's why. Iron Valiant is playable currently, and I have C potential for it post-rotation. The art's pretty. We already have a very pretty SAR of it, but I understand why people want to go for this one. But the Iron Crown is not playable at all. It was playable for one format for just a tiny bit, and then it kind of got phased out. Future Box is not good, especially with Charizard running around, and Iron Crown is weak to Charizard, so they just punish you for doing what your deck is supposed to do. That's why this one's gonna get a D from me. Let's see, have I done any evolutions yet? I don't think I have. Let's hop into the first of these evolutions, and I'm actually gonna start with the Wombo combo here of Vaporeon and Glaceon. For those that don't remember from my video on the playability, Vaporeon's first attack for water and a colorless does 60 damage to all your Pokemon's EX, and Glaceon's second attack knocks out one of your opponent's Pokemon with 60 HP. So this can be used as a Wombo combo to set it up with Vaporeon, they come up with Glaceon and Clean House. Honestly, for me, Glaceon's going at the top of C tier. Vaporeon's going at the middle of B tier. Both of these arts are pretty, especially Glaceon with the kind of more crystallized lines, but it's just not my cup of tea. Vaporeon, however, is a super dope looking card. I think this one is great. So Vaporeon's going to get a B from me. Going to what I call the most playable evolution, the Jolteon EX. Jolteon is going to fall at the top of B tier for me. Jolteon, the first attack for a lightning and a colorless does 60 plus 90, 90 per energy that you discard from your bench Pokemon. So you can go turn one going second, 240 with the Jolteon. But the art is kind of basic, I'm not gonna lie. Like, it's not a lot going on. It's honestly kind of just a yellow-orange blurb to me personally, so that's why we're gonna throw it at the top of B tier. The playability saves it, but the art is kind of lackluster. Let's head back to the ancient Pokemon. We got Roaring Moon. Roaring Moon is gonna go in A tier for me. The art is crazy, and it is a pretty playable card. It does belong in its own deck. It has its own archetype, so I can't take that from it. Yeah, it's gonna get an A tier from me. For the same reason, the Blood Moon Ursaluna is gonna get an A for me. The art is undeniably beautiful. This card may not be its own deck, but it is splashable in almost every deck and format. For those who don't know, the ability says for each prize card your opponent takes, the attack on Ursaluna takes one less colorless energy to power up. So you can get to a point in a game where you're doing 240 with Ursaluna for 0 damage, or excuse me, for 0 energy. Yeah, it's pretty good. It's kind of really enhanced a lot of decks that without it wouldn't have a late game option. Something like Lost Zone really benefits from it, so that's why it's gotta go in A tier for me, just because it's really helping out certain archetypes. Let's go ahead and hit these Ogrepons. Ogrepon, Stone Mask, C, pretty playable for stall and control, but like the art is kind of I think all of these Ogrepon arts are kind of compared to their Twilight Masquerade SARs. Let's see, Wellspring's gonna get a C for me as well. Only really playable in Lugia, and even then, a lot of Lugias don't play it. Flame Mask, excuse me, is gonna get a D from me. Only playable in maybe Gouging Fire decks sometimes. Art's meh, the playability is not there, so it's gonna get a D. And Teal Mask has to get an A for me, even though I'm not really a fan of the art. This card has been meta warping for sure. It's given you something to check Charizard with. It's built a lot of the best decks in format around it, like Raging Bolt and Regidrago, so it's got to get an A for that. But as far as the art for me is definitely a C, but the playability kind of saves it. Heading back over to the evolutions, we have Leafeon. Leafeon gets a B. I mean, the art is absolutely beautiful. It's pretty playable, pretty splashable because of the baby evolution and the boosted evolutions ability. So you can put a Eevee down, and as long as you can get that Eevee into the active, you can evolve it on the same turn as you played it down. So I think that Leafeon with the first attack that does 60 damage times the amount of energy attached to all your opponent's Pokemon in play could be used to check things like Teal Mask Ogrepon, could be used to maybe blow something big up. Your opponent has put energy on those Ogrepons to try and set up for next turn. You can punish that. Leafeon definitely is a B tier card for me. Headed back to the trainers from the Blueberry Academy. Drayton probably gets a C for me. It's kind of a meh card. Drayton is a decent character. I do enjoy him, but not anything to write home about. Same with Lacey. Lacey ends up in C tier only because she might maybe be really playable later. The card is pretty good, but again, compared to things that we have in A tier, like the Crispin with the uber playability, or the Raging Bolt, the Palafin with those crazy arts, it's got to go in C tier for me. Honestly, I can't even remember this character's name here. I'll have her pop up on the screen, but she's going to go in D. I'm not sure how actually playable she is at all. I don't really know anything about the character. She wasn't very memorable, so I'm assuming that this card will not be very memorable in the TCG either, so she's going to get a D from me. Let's go ahead and finish out the trainers with Kieran. Kieran is a super playable card. The effect of the supporter card reads either you can use this card as a switch, or your Pokemon do 30 more damage this turn. Has seen play in Charizard, has seen play in a lot of different decks as a one of. I think this card goes in B for me for playability, but A for the art. Let me explain. So there is no SIR or SAR Carmine in this set, but there is a Carmine on this card. A lot of people enjoy Carmine as a character. A lot of people enjoy Kieran as a character, especially this version of Kieran. This is Kieran after the Blueberry Academy kind of has warped him into being this ruthless kind of Elite Four leader. So very different take on Kieran than from when we first see him in the first set of DLC. I think this card gets an A for me for those reasons. Ceruledge is one that gets a B for me. It's playable enough, but the art is kind of busy. You can't even really tell what's going on, so it's going to get a B. Headed to the C tier, Sandy Shocks EX. Not very playable right now. Kind of outclassed by other things that you can Sada to. Outclassed by things like Slitherwing. Outclassed before by things like Sandy Shocks, the baby Sandy Shocks. So this one, it's going to go in C tier for me. We've got 5 evolutions left, or excuse me, 3 evolutions and 2 EVs. Let's go ahead and get the elephant out of the room. Umbreon's an A tier card for me. It's not very playable, but the fact that it's a Umbreon, I do really like the whole silhouette of Umbreon in front of the moon type deal. It's gonna get an A for me. Sylveon. This to me is an S tier card. This is a card I think I said in my last video that my wife would really enjoy getting. Very pretty, Very just bright poppy pink, very Sylveon in nature. I do think this card is an S tier. I do think people will love this card. Espeon, I do think people will love this card, and I am coping for the second attack with the de-evolution, but it is not as good as the Umbreon or the Sylveon, so it has to go in B tier for me, just because I'm coping for it, and I do think the card is pretty, but that doesn't mean it's good. And I actually think Umbreon has to go at the top of A tier, just because of what this card will do, what we know it will do. And then moving on, the last two, we do have the eevee SAR, the dual eevee SAR. First one up, we have the one with the vines in the back, the one that we already knew was in the set. Gonna go in A tier for me. Very pretty, just nice, simple, not very playable compared to the baby eevee, where you can evolve in the first turn. This one will let you evolve an EX card onto this, but it's not the same as evolving the turn that you put a card down, so it's got to go just in basic A tier. And for the evolution that we got surprised with at release, that one's got to go in S tier for me, just because of the story behind the card. This one is a collab with a chef from Japan that I believe won Asia's Best Chef in like 2022 or something. This one's just pretty. The story is great. It allowed Pokemon to do a really cool collab. I'm going to keep this one in the S tier. And there you go, folks. This is my tier list for all the SARs in the Terastal Festival EX set. Again, this has nothing to do with the price. Most of these cards are actually not that expensive. For example, that evolution that I put on there last is only $50 USD. So all these cards are pretty affordable, but I do think that this is a good gauge of playability slash how many people are going to be looking to collect these specific arts of cards. So again, guys, it's been Tyson here at the Poke Trainer Hub. Please go ahead, like, comment, subscribe, share the video, click the links in the description, go to all the socials and follow. And yeah, thanks so much for watching. I'll be back at you real soon with more Pokemon news and related topics. Yeah, have a great night. Bye.